A Werewolf Shifter Romance, written by Amelia Hart. Chapter 1. The Last Kindness. The fluorescent lights of Ray's diner hummed their familiar song, casting harsh shadows across the worn linoleum floor. Olivia Bennett's feet ached in a way that went beyond physical pain, settling somewhere deep in her bones after 16 hours of standing, serving, smiling. The clock on the wall read 11:07, and the winter night pressed against the windows with fingers of frost. She untied her stained apron, the fabric stiff with spilled coffee and forgotten dreams. 23 years old, and this was her kingdom. A diner that smelled of grease and desperation, where the coffee was always too bitter and the tips never quite enough. May, the owner, emerged from the kitchen with a brown paper bag. The elderly woman's weathered face held a knowing expression that Olivia had never quite understood. There was something ancient in May's eyes, something that suggested she saw more than most people did. "Take this, honey." May pressed the bag into Olivia's hands. "Turkey sandwich from the lunch shift. It'll spoil if it sits overnight." Olivia's stomach clenched with hunger she'd been ignoring for hours. Breakfast had been coffee and a stale muffin at 7 that morning, over 16 hours ago now. She'd skipped lunch to save money, and dinner had never been an option. The electric bill sat on her kitchen counter with red letters screaming warnings she couldn't afford to hear. "May, I can't just take food. You can and you will." May's tone left no room for argument. Her wrinkled hands closed Olivia's fingers around the bag. "You covered for Natalie when she got sick. You worked a double shift without complaining. This isn't charity, girl, this is payment." The older woman paused, studying Olivia's face with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "You have eyes that see beyond, child. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." Before Olivia could ask what that meant, May had disappeared back into the kitchen, leaving her alone with a sandwich and questions she was too tired to pursue. The Portland streets were empty at this hour, the kind of silent that felt heavy with secrets. Olivia pulled her thin jacket tighter against the December cold, her breath forming clouds that disappeared into the darkness. She chose the shortcut through the alley, the same route she'd taken 100 times before. Her apartment was only 8 blocks away, but tonight, each step felt like miles. The streetlights painted everything in shades of amber and shadow. Somewhere in the distance, a car alarm wailed and died. Her fingers clutched the paper bag containing her only meal, the weight of it a reminder of how close to the edge she lived. One missed shift, one unexpected expense, and everything could crumble. That's when she saw him. He was collapsed against the brick wall near the dumpsters, a heap of ragged clothes and visible trembling. At first, Olivia thought he might be dead. The stillness of his form suggested absence. But then she caught the shallow rise and fall of his chest. Every survival instinct screamed at her to keep walking. This was exactly how people got hurt, but her feet stopped moving anyway, betraying the logic her brain offered. "Hey," she called softly, keeping her distance. "Are you all right?" The man's head lifted slowly, and Olivia's breath caught, even in the dim light, even through the grime and exhaustion marking his features. His eyes were striking. Amber, she thought. Like honey held up to sunlight, or whiskey in crystal glasses she'd never be able to afford. Those eyes fixed on her with an intensity that should have been frightening, but somehow wasn't. There was intelligence there, sharp and assessing, completely at odds with his appearance. "You should go," he said, his voice rough, but carrying an undertone of authority that made her pause. "This isn't a safe area for someone like you." "Someone like me?" Olivia found herself stepping closer despite his warning. "And what about you?" "You're freezing." He didn't answer, just watched her with those unsettling eyes. Now that she was nearer, she could see details that contradicted the image of a homeless man. His hands, though dirty, weren't damaged by years of street life. The bone structure of his face spoke of strength rather than starvation. And there was something about the way he held himself, even collapsed against a wall, that suggested coiled power. "When did you last eat?" she asked. A flicker of something crossed his face. Surprise, maybe. "A while." Olivia looked down at the paper bag in her hands. Her stomach growled in protest at what she was about to do, but her hands were already moving, holding out her only meal. "Here, take it." He didn't reach for it. "That's yours." And you need it more than I do. You're lying. I can see it in your face. You're starving. The blunt assessment should have embarrassed her. But instead, Olivia felt oddly exposed. This stranger saw what she tried so hard to hide from everyone else. The desperation, the constant calculation of whether she could afford to eat or pay rent, the gnawing emptiness that had become her constant companion. Maybe, she admitted. But I know where my next meal is coming from. Do you? Silence stretched between them, filled with the distant sounds of the city at night. Finally, his hand emerged from beneath his torn jacket, and he accepted the bag. His fingers brushed hers for just a moment, and Olivia felt something strange, an electric shock that had nothing to do with static, a warmth that spread up her arm and settled somewhere near her heart. She pulled back quickly, confused by the sensation. Why? He asked, opening the bag and staring at its contents as if he'd never seen food before. You don't know me. I could be dangerous. Olivia settled onto the cold concrete beside him, ignoring the way the frozen ground seeped through her thin pants. Because I know what it feels like to be hungry. Because no one should have to face that alone. Because kindness doesn't need a reason. He ate slowly, as if savoring each bite. Or perhaps as if he'd forgotten how to eat quickly. Olivia watched the street, giving him privacy for his hunger. But she was acutely aware of his presence beside her. There was heat radiating from him despite his trembling, an almost feverish warmth that seemed impossible given his condition. I'm Olivia, she offered after a while. Dominic. Just one name, but the way he said it carried weight. Olivia waited for more, but he remained silent, finishing the sandwich with careful deliberation. There's a shelter on Morrison Street, she ventured. They might still have beds available. I'm fine where I am. You're freezing. I've survived worse. The statement held dark truths Olivia didn't want to imagine. She stood, brushing dirt from her pants. At least let me help you somewhere warmer. The hallway of my building is covered, and the super doesn't check at night. You'd be out of the wind at least. Dominic looked up at her, and something shifted in his expression. The hardness around his eyes softened fractionally, replaced by what might have been wonder or confusion. You'd let a stranger sleep in your building? I'd let another human being have shelter. There's a difference. She extended her hand to help him up. After a long moment, he took it. His grip was stronger than she expected. And when he stood, Olivia realized he was tall, very tall, at least 6'3", with broad shoulders that his ragged jacket couldn't quite hide. They walked in silence through the empty streets, Olivia leading the way, while Dominic followed a step behind. She could feel his eyes on her back, studying, assessing. It should have made her nervous. But instead, she felt something else entirely. Safe, somehow. Protected. Her building appeared through the darkness, a shabby structure with peeling paint and broken windows on the upper floors. Home, such as it was. The hallway stays relatively warm, Olivia explained, fishing her keys from her pocket. And it's locked, so you'll be safe until morning. Dominic said nothing, just nodded. But as Olivia turned to leave, his hand caught her wrist gently. The touch sent that same strange electricity through her system. Thank you, he said, his amber eyes holding hers. For your kindness. For seeing me as human when you had every reason not to. Everyone deserves to be seen. Olivia replied softly. Then, before she could second-guess herself, she pulled a small blanket from the hallway closet that residents sometimes used. Take this, too. It's not much, but it'll help. She left him there, climbing the stairs to her empty apartment on the 3rd floor. Only when she was safely inside with the door locked did she allow herself to process what had happened. Her stomach growled viciously, reminding her that she'd given away her only food. But somehow, looking at the city lights through her cracked window, Olivia didn't regret it. There had been something about Dominic that defied explanation. Something in his eyes, in the way he moved, in the heat that radiated from him. Something that whispered of mysteries she didn't have words for yet. Sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of amber eyes and electric touches, of warmth in the cold and kindness in the darkness. When morning arrived, and Olivia hurried down the stairs for her early shift, she found the hallway empty. No sign of Dominic except for the neatly folded blanket, and a note written in surprisingly elegant handwriting. Your kindness revealed your true heart. This will not be forgotten. Until we meet again. D. Olivia tucked the note into her pocket, a strange ache settling in her chest. She told herself it was hunger or exhaustion or the lingering cold. But deep down, she knew it was something else entirely. Something that felt uncomfortably like loss, even though she'd only known him for an hour. The city swallowed her back into its rhythm, and life continued. But 3 blocks away, in the back of a black SUV with tinted windows, Dominic Gray stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror as he peeled away the contact lenses that had hidden the true brightness of his eyes. Well? Owen's voice broke the silence. Did she pass? Dominic thought of her hollow cheeks and worn clothes, of the way she'd given her last meal without hesitation, of the warmth in her eyes when she'd looked at him not as a king or an alpha, but simply as someone who needed help. She's perfect, he said quietly, and she has no idea what she is. Chapter 2. When Shadows Return. 4 days passed and Olivia couldn't shake the memory of amber eyes and elegant handwriting. She found herself reaching for the note in her pocket during quiet moments at the diner, tracing the words with her fingertips as if they might reveal secrets she couldn't name. May noticed, of course. The older woman saw everything with those knowing eyes that made Olivia wonder what stories lay hidden in her past. But she said nothing, just watched with an expression that might have been approval or concern. It was hard to tell with May. Friday night brought the usual crowd. Factory workers from the evening shift, night students nursing coffee over textbooks, the occasional drunk stumbling in for sobering food. Olivia moved through her routine with mechanical efficiency, her mind elsewhere. Somewhere in a dark alley with a stranger who'd looked at her like she mattered. The bell above the door chimed at 10:10, and Olivia glanced up from wiping down the counter. Her breath caught in her throat. Dominic stood in the doorway, and he was transformed. Gone were the ragged clothes and grime. In their place, he wore dark jeans that fit him perfectly, and a black Henley that clung to broad shoulders she'd only guessed at before. His hair was clean and pushed back from his face, revealing the sharp angles of his features. A leather jacket completed the look, expensive but understated. But it was his eyes that held her frozen, those same amber eyes that had haunted her dreams, now bright and clear and fixed on her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. He crossed the diner in 3 long strides, moving with a fluid grace that seemed almost inhuman. Several customers glanced up, some doing double takes at his presence. There was something about him that commanded attention, an invisible weight that filled the room. "Hello, Olivia." Just her name, but spoken in that voice with its hidden depths, it sounded like a prayer or a promise. Maybe both. "Dominic," she managed, her fingers tightening on the dish rag she'd been holding. "You're different." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, transforming his face from handsome to devastating. Cleaner, at least. "May I sit?" She nodded toward the nearest booth, her server's instincts kicking in despite her racing heart. "Coffee?" "Please, and whatever you'd recommend to eat." Olivia poured coffee with hands that trembled slightly, hyper-aware of his gaze following her movements. When she set the cup in front of him, their fingers brushed again, and that same electric shock traveled up her arm. This time, she saw his eyes widen fractionally. So he felt it too. "I wanted to thank you properly," Dominic said, wrapping long fingers around the mug. "For the other night. That was an extraordinary act of kindness." "It was just a sandwich," Olivia deflected, though warmth spread through her chest at his words. "It was everything." His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the public setting. "Tell me, do you make a habit of helping strangers in alleys? Do you make a habit of sleeping in them?" That earned her a genuine laugh, rich and warm. "Touché. The truth is, my situation has improved significantly since we met. I'd like to repay your generosity. Dinner, perhaps? Somewhere nicer than this, though no offense to the establishment." Olivia glanced toward the kitchen where May was watching through the service window, her expression unreadable. "I don't need repayment. Consider it less repayment and more getting to know you better." Dominic leaned forward, and Olivia caught his scent, pine and something wilder, like wind through forests she'd never seen. Please, say yes. Every logical part of her brain screamed caution. She knew nothing about this man except that he'd been homeless 4 days ago, and now wore clothes that probably cost more than her monthly rent. But there was something in his eyes, a vulnerability beneath the confidence, that made her want to trust him. "My shift ends at midnight," she heard herself say. His smile could have lit the entire city. "I'll wait." And he did. For the next hour and 50 minutes, Dominic sat in that booth, nursing coffee and the plate of food Olivia brought him. He didn't read or check a phone. He just watched her work, his presence a warm weight she felt even when her back was turned. The other customers noticed too. Young women found excuses to walk past his table. Even Natalie, who'd returned from her sick leave, kept casting glances his way, until Olivia wanted to snap at her. "Girl, who is that?" Natalie whispered during a lull, her eyes wide. "He looks like he walked out of a cologne commercial." "Just someone I met," Olivia replied, aiming for casual and missing by miles. "Someone you met?" "Liv, he's been staring at you like you're the only person in the world for almost 2 hours." "That's not just someone." Before Olivia could respond, May appeared beside them. "Natalie, check on table 7. "Olivia, can I speak with you?" They moved to the back storage room, away from prying eyes. May's weathered face was serious, her hands gripping Olivia's shoulders with surprising strength. "That man out there," May said quietly. "He's not what he seems." "What do you mean?" May hesitated, something warring behind her eyes. Finally, she sighed. "I mean, be careful, honey. There are things in this world that don't fit in neat boxes. Things that hide in plain sight." She paused, then added almost to herself, "Things I thought I'd left behind 40 years ago. May, you're scaring me." "Good. Fear keeps you alert." But then her expression softened. "Though sometimes the scariest things turn out to be the most precious. Just keep your eyes open, understand?" Olivia nodded, though she understood nothing. May had always been slightly eccentric, but this felt different, urgent. When midnight finally arrived and Olivia emerged from the back room with her jacket and purse, Dominic stood immediately. The simple courtesy felt oddly formal, like something from another era. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." Outside, the December air bit at her exposed skin. Dominic gestured toward a sleek black Audi parked at the curb, another sign of wealth that didn't match his story. "Nice car for someone who was homeless 4 days ago," Olivia observed as she slid into the leather seat. Dominic's jaw tightened briefly. "I told you my situation improved. I should have been more honest from the start. So be honest now." He started the engine, and they pulled into the empty street. "The short version? I work in security consulting. High level. Sometimes my job requires me to blend in, to see how people react when you strip away the trappings of wealth and status." "That's why you were in the alley? As a test?" "Yes. And you were the first person in 3 weeks who stopped to help. The first who saw me as human, not as an obstacle or a danger." Olivia processed this, anger and understanding warring in her chest. "So I was part of some experiment?" "No." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You were the entire point. I needed to find someone genuine, someone whose kindness wasn't contingent on what they could gain, and I found you." The words should have sounded manipulative, calculated. Instead, they sounded honest, raw, even. They drove through Portland's quiet streets until Dominic pulled up to a food truck parked near a plaza. Kim's Korean BBQ, the sign read in cheerful neon. "This isn't exactly the fancy dinner I imagined," Olivia said, surprised. "No," Dominic agreed, climbing out. "But you strike me as someone who values substance over show. Am I wrong?" He wasn't, and somehow that made everything more unsettling. How could he read her so easily when they were practically strangers? They ordered bulgogi and bibimbap, eating at a nearby bench under the streetlights. The food was incredible, warming her from the inside out. More importantly, Dominic talked. Really talked. He asked about her life, her dreams, what brought her to Portland. Olivia found herself opening up in ways she rarely did, sharing her parents' memory and their beautiful garden full of roses and lavender. talking about her dream of owning a small flower shop someday, bringing beauty into the world through living things. My mother used to say that gardens were proof of hope, Olivia said softly, that planting something meant you believed in tomorrow. Dominic watched her with an expression she couldn't decipher. What happened to them? Your parents? Car accident when I was 18. Drunk driver ran a red light. The words still hurt, even 5 years later. I've been on my own since then. That's why you helped me. You understand loss. Maybe. Or maybe I just can't stand seeing someone suffer when I could do something about it. That's rare, Olivia. Rarer than you know. He shifted closer, and she could feel the heat radiating from him despite the cold. Most people talk about kindness. You live it. She laughed, uncomfortable with the praise. You're making me sound like a saint. Trust me, I'm not. No, he agreed, eyes glinting with something that might have been amusement. You're better. You're real. The moment stretched between them, charged with an energy Olivia didn't understand. She wanted to lean into him, to close the distance and discover if his lips were as warm as the rest of him seemed to be. But before she could move, his phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. Dominic's expression darkened as he checked the screen. I'm sorry. I need to take this. He stood and moved a few steps away, his voice dropping to a tone she couldn't quite hear, but she caught fragments. I'm handling it. No. The timeline stands. She doesn't need to know yet. When he returned, his face was carefully neutral. I apologize. Work. At midnight on a Friday? Security consulting keeps unusual hours. He offered his hand. Let me take you home. It's late. The drive back was quieter, tension humming beneath the surface. When they pulled up to her shabby building, Dominic killed the engine and turned to face her. I'd like to see you again. Tomorrow night, if you're free. A proper dinner this time. Olivia hesitated. Everything about this felt too fast, too intense. But when she looked into those amber eyes, logic fled. Okay. Tomorrow. His smile was brilliant and fleeting. Thank you, Olivia. For tonight. For everything. She climbed out of the car, but he caught her hand before she could close the door. That electric spark again. Stronger this time. One more thing. If anyone approaches you, anyone who makes you uncomfortable or asks questions about me, call me immediately. He pressed a card into her palm with a phone number printed on it. Nothing else. No name, no company. Why would anyone do that? They won't, he said quickly. I'm just cautious. Occupational hazard. Olivia nodded slowly, unease creeping back. But Dominic squeezed her hand gently, and the warmth of his touch chased away her doubts. At least temporarily. She watched his taillights disappear into the night, then looked down at the card in her hand. The paper was expensive, heavy stock, the kind that suggested serious money. In her apartment, Olivia found herself pulling out the note he'd left in the hallway, comparing the handwriting. Elegant, controlled, hiding secrets she couldn't begin to guess at. May's warning echoed in her mind. Not what he seems. Things that hide in plain sight. But what could a security consultant be hiding that warranted such cryptic warnings? Olivia fell asleep with questions buzzing through her head like angry bees, unaware that 3 blocks away, Dominic sat in the back of his Audi while Owen drove, his expression troubled. She's perfect for this, Owen. Too perfect. Which means when she learns the truth, she'll hate me for the deception. Then tell her sooner rather than later, Your Majesty. You have 8 days left. Dominic closed his eyes. 8 days to make Olivia Bennet fall for him, to prove to his kingdom that a human could be their queen, and to somehow protect her from the political storm that was already gathering. 8 days before everything changed forever. Chapter 3. Truths Beneath Skin. Saturday night arrived with the kind of anticipation that made Olivia's hands shake as she tried to apply mascara. She'd changed outfits 3 times, finally settling on the simple black dress that had survived 5 years in her closet. It wasn't fancy, but it was the best she had. Dominic picked her up at 8, and the sight of him leaning against his Audi in dark slacks and a fitted shirt made her mouth go dry. He smiled when he saw her, the kind of smile that reached his amber eyes and transformed his entire face. You look beautiful, he said, opening the passenger door for her. You clean up nicely yourself. They drove through Portland's glittering downtown, eventually pulling up to the Heathman restaurant. Olivia had walked past it 100 times but never dreamed of entering. The prices alone were enough to keep people like her firmly on the sidewalk. "Dominic, I can't afford—" "You're not paying," he said firmly. "This is my way of saying thank you. Please, let me do this." Inside, the restaurant was all warm lighting and quiet elegance. The maitre d' greeted Dominic by name, his deference almost comical. "Mr. Gray, wonderful to see you again. Your usual table, please." They were led to a private corner booth, away from other diners. Olivia noticed how the staff moved around Dominic with careful respect, how conversations seemed to quiet as they passed. More than that, she noticed something odd about several of the servers, the way their posture shifted when Dominic walked by, becoming almost submissive. "You must come here a lot," Olivia observed once they were seated. "Occasionally. For work." Dominic's attention was entirely on her, those amber eyes studying her face as if memorizing every detail. "Tell me about your parents. You said they had a garden?" The question caught her off guard, but Olivia found herself talking. About her mother's roses that bloomed even in winter. About her father teaching her the Latin names of plants. About lazy summer afternoons spent among the lavender with bees humming their drowsy songs. "They died on a Tuesday," she said softly. "I always thought that was strange, that something so terrible could happen on such an ordinary day." Dominic reached across the table, covering her hand with his. The touch sent that now familiar electricity up her arm, but this time it brought comfort instead of confusion. "I lost my parents when I was 16. Violently. I understand that particular kind of pain. I'm sorry. So am I. For both of us." His thumb traced circles on her palm, and Olivia wondered if he noticed how her pulse jumped at the contact. "But that's why I recognize strength when I see it. You've survived loss that would have broken others." They talked through dinner, the food barely registering, though Olivia was sure it was excellent. Dominic asked about her dreams, her fears, what kept her up at night. And somehow, impossibly, she told him, about the flower shop she wanted to open, about feeling invisible in a city full of people, about the strange sensation she'd had her whole life that there was something more to the world than what everyone pretended existed. At that last confession, Dominic's expression shifted. "What if I told you that you were right? That there is more?" I'd ask what you meant. He seemed to be weighing something, deciding how much to reveal. "The world has layers, Olivia. Most people only see the surface, but some of us, we see deeper. We know what hides in plain sight. You're being cryptic. I'm being careful." He leaned forward, and his scent wrapped around her. Pine and wilderness, and something wild that made her head spin. "There are things I need to tell you, things that might scare you, but I want you to know who I really am before this goes any further." "This?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Whatever's happening between us." His voice dropped lower, intimate despite the public setting. "Because something is happening, isn't it? You feel it too." Olivia nodded, unable to deny the pull she felt toward him. It was more than attraction, though that was certainly there. It was recognition, as if some part of her had been waiting for him without knowing it. "Then, let me show you," Dominic said. "After dinner. There's somewhere I want to take you." They left the restaurant an hour later, Dominic guiding her to his car with a hand on the small of her back. The touch burned through the thin fabric of her dress, and Olivia found herself leaning into it. The drive took them out of the city, into the hills where Portland's lights became distant stars below them. They pulled onto a private road marked with no trespassing signs that Dominic ignored. "Where are we going?" Olivia asked as they bumped along the rutted path. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere I can show you the truth." The road opened into a clearing surrounded by towering pines. Moonlight poured down, turning everything silver. Dominic killed the engine and came around to open her door, offering his hand. "I'm going to tell you something impossible," he said once they were standing in the clearing. "And then I'm going to prove it. But first, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "Don't run. No matter what you see, don't run from me." Fear flickered in Olivia's chest, but curiosity was stronger. "Okay, I promise." Dominic stepped back, putting space between them. Do you believe in werewolves, Olivia? The question hung in the cold air. Olivia's first instinct was to laugh, to dismiss it as a joke, but his expression was deadly serious, and something in those amber eyes made her pause. I don't know, she admitted. I've always felt like there was more to the world than what we're told. But werewolves, I'm going to show you. He unbuttoned his shirt slowly, revealing the sculpted planes of his chest. Watch. What happened next would have seemed impossible if Olivia hadn't been watching it with her own eyes. Dominic's form blurred at the edges, like reality itself was becoming uncertain. His amber eyes flared brighter, glowing with inner fire. And then his bones began to shift. It should have been horrifying. The way his body contorted and reformed, the sound of joints popping and resetting. But there was a terrible beauty to it too, a fluid grace that suggested this was as natural as breathing. Within seconds, where Dominic Gray had stood, there now crouched an enormous wolf. Its fur was black as midnight, its shoulders reaching Olivia's waist, and its eyes, those same amber eyes, stared at her with human intelligence. Olivia's stomach lurched. The sight was beyond anything she could have prepared for. Bones reshaping, fur erupting, a creature of myth unfolding where a man had stood. Part of her wanted to flee, to scream. Another part felt rooted by the strange pull in her chest. The amber eyes held her, and she found herself unable to move. Olivia's legs trembled, but she didn't run. She'd promised, and some part of her trusted him even in this impossible form. Dominic? The wolf's ears pricked forward. It took a careful step toward her, moving with deliberate slowness. Another step. Another. Until it stood directly in front of her, so close she could feel the heat radiating from its massive body. Slowly, hardly daring to breathe, Olivia reached out. Her fingers sank into fur softer than she'd imagined, warm and thick. The wolf pressed into her touch, and a rumbling sound came from deep in its chest. Not a growl. A purr, almost. You're beautiful, she whispered, running her hands through the black fur. How is this possible? The wolf pulled back, and the transformation reversed. Bones cracked and reformed, fur receding into skin. Within moments, Dominic stood before her again, slightly breathless from the shift. He'd maintained enough control to keep his pants, though his shirt lay forgotten on the ground. Contrary to what she expected, some of his clothes often remained intact. Dominic later explained that higher-ranked alphas could control the transformation enough to keep essential garments, though the effort drained them, and it did not always succeed. I'm a shifter, he said simply. A werewolf, if you prefer the traditional term. I can take the form of a wolf at will. Olivia stared at him, her mind racing to reconcile what she'd just witnessed with everything she thought she knew about reality. That's why your eyes glow sometimes. Why you're so warm. Why people in the restaurant acted so strange around you. Yes, they were shifters too. Lower ranked. They could sense what I am. And what are you exactly? Dominic's jaw tightened. An alpha. A leader of my kind. Questions tumbled through Olivia's mind, but one rose above the rest. Why tell me? Why show me this? Because I need you to understand who I am before I ask you to take a chance on me. He stepped closer, framing her face with his hands. Because there are things happening, Olivia. Political things. Dangerous things. And I'm at the center of them. I don't understand. I'm not just an alpha. I'm the Alpha King. I rule all the shifter territories in North America. Every pack, every wolf from Canada to Mexico answers to me. The words should have sounded absurd, delusional. But standing in the moonlight with his hands warm against her skin, Olivia believed him. More than that, some part of her had known. Had sensed the power in him from the very beginning. The man in the alley, she said slowly. That was a test. Yes, I needed to find someone whose kindness was genuine. Someone who could see past power and politics to the person underneath. His thumbs traced her cheekbones. I found you. What does that mean? It means I have 8 days to convince you to be mine. 8 days before my council announces my engagement to a woman I've never loved. 8 days to prove that you could be my queen. Olivia's breath caught. Your queen? Dominic, I'm human. I can't even do what you just did. I don't care. My kingdom needs a leader who understands compassion, not just strength. Someone who sees people, not just pack politics. He leaned his forehead against hers. I think that person is you. This is insane. Probably. But tell me you don't feel it too. The pull between us, the recognition. She couldn't, because she did feel it, had felt it from the moment their eyes met in that alley. An impossible connection that defied logic and reason. Before she could respond, Dominic's phone buzzed insistently. He pulled it out, his expression darkening as he read the screen. Damn it. What's wrong? Work. I'm sorry, I need to take this. He stepped away, his voice dropping to a low, urgent tone. Olivia heard fragments. How many? Where? I'll handle it. When he returned, his face was carefully neutral. I need to take you home. Something's come up that requires my attention. The drive back was quieter, tension humming beneath the surface. When they pulled up to her building, Dominic turned to face her fully. I'm sorry to cut this short, but Olivia, please think about what I've told you. I know it's overwhelming. I know I'm asking the impossible, but I need you to consider it. Consider being the queen of the werewolves? The words sounded ridiculous even as she said them. Consider giving us a chance. That's all. Just a chance. He caught her hand, pressing his card into her palm. Different from the first one, this had an address. This is where I'll be for the next week. If you decide you want to know more, if you're willing to explore this, come find me. Olivia looked down at the card, then back up at his face. In the dim light of the car, his eyes reflected like an animal's, glowing faintly amber. What if I can't do this? What if I'm not strong enough for your world? You gave me everything you had when you had nothing. His voice was fierce, certain. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like she'd imagined a first kiss could be. It was heat and hunger, and something primal that made her blood sing. When they broke apart, both breathless, Olivia's hands were fisted in his shirt. Think about it. Dominic whispered against her lips. Please. Then he was gone, driving off into the night, leaving Olivia standing on the sidewalk with a business card and a choice that would change everything. Inside her apartment, she stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Her lips were swollen from kissing, her eyes wide and startled. Behind her, she could swear she saw something. A flicker of light, as if her own eyes had glowed amber for just a second. But that was impossible, wasn't it? Chapter 4. Between Two Worlds. 3 days passed in a blur of confusion and impossible possibilities. Olivia went through the motions at Ray's diner, pouring coffee and taking orders while her mind replayed the transformation over and over. The way Dominic's bones had shifted, the massive wolf with amber eyes, the kiss that had set her blood on fire. She'd almost convinced herself it was a dream until she found the business card in her jacket pocket. The address was printed in neat letters. A location outside Seattle, nearly 3 hours away. You're awfully distracted, honey, May observed on Tuesday afternoon, sliding into the booth where Olivia was supposedly rolling silverware. The lunch rush had ended, leaving them in relative quiet. That man still on your mind? Olivia's hand stilled. You know about him. It wasn't a question. May's expression that night, her cryptic warnings, they all made sense now. I know about a lot of things people like to pretend don't exist. May's weathered fingers covered Olivia's. I had a love like that once. A man who could run faster than wind, who saw in the dark, whose heart beat in time with the moon. What happened to him? He died defending his pack from rogues. 40 years ago this summer. May's eyes were distant, caught in memories Olivia couldn't see. I never married again. When you love someone who shows you magic, ordinary men feel like shadows. How did you handle it? Knowing what he was? I didn't handle it. I just loved him anyway. May squeezed her hand. That's all you can do, honey. Love them anyway, with all their impossibilities and dangers. Or walk away and spend the rest of your life wondering what if. That night, Olivia found herself pulling out the card again. The address stared back at her, a doorway to a world she couldn't quite believe existed. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I miss you. If you need more time, I understand. But I hope you'll come. D. Her fingers hovered over the reply button for 10 minutes before she finally typed, I need to see you. Tomorrow. The response came immediately. I'll send Owen to pick you up. 10 a.m.? Olivia should have been nervous about getting into a car with a stranger, but somehow she knew Dominic would never put her in danger. Okay. Owen arrived precisely at 10 in a sleek black SUV. He was younger than Olivia expected, maybe 30, with auburn hair and a friendly smile that crinkled the scar on his chin. But his eyes held the same otherworldly awareness she'd seen in Dominic's. Miss Bennett, he greeted, opening the passenger door with old-fashioned courtesy. It's a pleasure to finally meet you properly. You're his beta, Olivia said as they pulled onto the highway. Owen's eyebrows rose. He told you about pack structure? He told me everything, or at least a lot. She watched the city give way to forest. You know what I am, what I'm not. I know you're the woman who gave her last meal to a stranger without hesitation. Owen's voice was gentle. That's all that matters to Dominic. The rest is just politics. Is it, though? Can a human really be queen to all the shifters in North America? Honestly, I don't know. It's never been done before. He glanced at her. But Dominic has been alone a long time, Miss Bennett. He's watched potential mates come and go, all of them wanting the crown more than the man. You're the first person who looked at him and saw someone worth helping, not using. The property they arrived at took Olivia's breath away. 50 acres of pristine forest surrounded a clearing, where a modern cabin sat nestled among ancient trees. It was beautiful in an understated way, all natural wood and large windows that let the forest inside. Dominic emerged before Owen had fully stopped the car. He moved with that fluid grace that now made sense, his amber eyes fixed on Olivia with an intensity that made her heart race. He looked different here, more relaxed, wearing jeans and a simple black shirt that somehow made him more devastating than any suit could. You came, he said, helping her out of the SUV. His touch sent the now familiar electricity through her system. I needed to see you again, to make sure it was real. It's real. He kept her hand in his, leading her toward the cabin while Owen discreetly disappeared. I know this is overwhelming. I know I'm asking you to believe in things that shouldn't exist. Inside, the cabin was warm and welcoming. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and comfortable furniture invited lounging. Through the windows, Olivia could see the forest stretching endlessly. This place is incredible, she breathed. It's neutral territory. Somewhere I can come when the politics get too heavy. Dominic guided her to the couch, sitting close enough that their thighs touched. I wanted you to see it. To understand that not everything in my world is about power and hierarchy. Tell me about your world, Olivia requested. Help me understand. So he did. For the next hour, Dominic explained the structure of shifter society, how packs were organized by region, each led by an alpha who answered to him, how the betas were second in command, the advisors and enforcers, how there were laws governing everything from territory disputes to mating rights. And you rule all of it? Olivia tried to wrap her mind around the scope. Technically, yes, though I work with a council of the most powerful regional alphas. We make decisions together, though my word is final. His jaw tightened, which is why my upcoming engagement is such a problem. Tell me about her. Your intended. Dominic's expression darkened. Victoria Winters. She's the daughter of Derek Winters, who leads the council. An alpha in her own right, powerful and political. The engagement was arranged when I was 20, meant to unite our families. Do you love her? No. I've never loved her. Never wanted her. He turned to face Olivia fully, framing her face with his hands. I've been waiting for you, Olivia. I just didn't know it until I saw you in that alley. Before she could respond, he kissed her. This time it was slower, deeper, a claiming that left no doubt about his intentions. Olivia melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt as his tongue swept into her mouth. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. Come outside with me. Let me show you something. They walked into the forest, following a narrow trail that wound between towering pines. The air smelled of earth and green things, clean in a way the city never was. Birds called overhead, and somewhere in the distance, water gurgled over rocks. "I want to shift again," Dominic said, stopping in a sun-dappled clearing. "But this time, I want you to really see. To understand what I am." Olivia nodded, her throat tight with anticipation. This time, watching his transformation was different. She noticed details she'd missed before. The way his amber eyes flared brighter just before the shift began. How his movements became more fluid, more graceful as bones realigned. The sheer power emanating from him as fur replaced skin. The black wolf that emerged was even more magnificent in daylight. Sunlight caught in its fur, revealing undertones of dark silver. Its amber eyes held intelligence and awareness that was distinctly Dominic. "You're beautiful," Olivia whispered, approaching slowly. "Both sides of you are beautiful." The wolf pressed against her legs, and Olivia sank her fingers into its thick fur. She could feel the powerful muscles beneath, the heat of its body, the steady rhythm of its breathing. This was Dominic. Wild and civilized, human and beast, all at once. A sound made them both freeze. The wolf's ears pricked forward, its body going rigid with alertness. Then it positioned itself between Olivia and the source of the noise, a low growl rumbling in its chest. Victoria Winters stepped into the clearing, and Olivia's first thought was that she looked like a queen already. Tall and blonde with ice blue eyes, she wore designer clothes that somehow looked appropriate for the forest. But it was her scent that hit Olivia first, sharp and aggressive, making her want to retreat. "How touching," Victoria said, her voice dripping false sweetness. The great alpha king playing wolf for his little human pet. Dominic shifted back, and this time Olivia saw him maintain enough control to keep his clothes intact, though they were stretched tight across his frame. "Victoria, you're trespassing." "Am I?" "I thought, as you're intended, I had access to all your properties." Victoria's gaze swept over Olivia with barely concealed contempt. "So this is her, the waitress who thinks she can be queen." "Olivia isn't just a waitress," Dominic said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. "And you have no right to speak to her like that." "Don't I?" "I'm going to be your Luna in 2 days, Dominic. The council expects the announcement. My father expects it." Victoria took a step closer. This human fantasy needs to end. Something in Olivia snapped. She'd spent her whole life being invisible, being dismissed, but she wouldn't let this woman intimidate her. Maybe Dominic doesn't want what the council expects. Did you ever think of that? Victoria's eyes flashed, and for just a moment, Olivia saw them glow amber. "You have no idea what you're interfering with, little girl. The shifter world isn't kind to weak humans who don't know their place." "Then it's a good thing I'm learning," Olivia shot back. A smile curved Victoria's lips, but it held no warmth. "We'll see about that." She shifted then, faster than Olivia could follow. One moment a woman stood there, the next a white wolf with ice blue eyes. The transformation was different from Dominic's. More aggressive, more showy. The white wolf circled Olivia slowly, and every instinct screamed at her to run. But Dominic moved between them, his own body beginning to shift. "Enough!" he commanded, his voice carrying power that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "Leave now, Victoria, or I will make you leave." The white wolf held his gaze for a long moment, then shifted back. 2 days, Dominic. Then all of this ends. She disappeared into the forest, leaving silence in her wake. Olivia realized she was shaking. Dominic pulled her into his arms, and she buried her face against his chest. Is she right? Am I interfering in something I don't understand? No. She's protecting her own interests. He tilted her chin up. But she's also right about one thing. This world can be dangerous for humans. If you choose me, you'll be facing opposition from people like her. People who don't think you belong. And what do you think? I think you're the strongest person I've ever met. I think you could change everything. He kissed her forehead gently. But I also think you deserve to know what you're getting into before you decide. Owen appeared at the edge of the clearing, his expression grim. Your Majesty, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we have a problem. The way he said it made Olivia's blood run cold. This wasn't just pack politics. This was something worse. Chapter 5. Into the Wolf's Den. The attack came at 2 a.m, shattering Olivia's sleep with the sound of breaking glass. She bolted upright in bed, heart hammering as footsteps thundered through her apartment. Before she could scream, a hand clamped over her mouth. "Don't make a sound." Owen's voice was barely a whisper. "There are rogues in the building. We need to move now." Olivia nodded, fear coursing through her veins. Owen released her and moved to the window, checking the fire escape. 2 massive shapes prowled in the alley below, too large to be normal dogs. "How many?" she breathed. "At least 4. They're hunting you specifically." Owen's expression was grim. "Victoria must have given them your scent." The door to her bedroom exploded inward. A man stood there, but his eyes glowed amber and his teeth were too sharp. The human girl. "Derek Winters sends his regards." Owen shifted instantly, his body blurring into a rust-colored wolf that launched itself at the intruder. They collided in a fury of teeth and claws, crashing through furniture. Olivia pressed herself against the wall, searching desperately for a weapon. Her hands closed around a baseball bat she kept by the bed. A second rogue burst through the doorway. This one was smaller, leaner, with hungry eyes that fixed on Olivia. "There you are, little human. You've caused us so much trouble." He lunged. Olivia swung the bat with everything she had, connecting with his jaw in a crack of wood against bone. He staggered back, more surprised than hurt. Before he could recover, Owen had finished with the first attacker and was on him, powerful jaws closing around his throat. "The window," Owen growled, his voice distorted by his wolf form. "Go. Now." Olivia didn't hesitate. She grabbed her jacket and phone, climbing onto the fire escape as the sounds of fighting continued behind her. 2 flights down, she hit the alley and ran, her bare feet slapping against cold pavement. She'd made it 3 blocks when a black SUV screeched to a stop beside her. The back door flew open, and Dominic's voice cut through the night. "Get in." Olivia dove into the vehicle. Dominic pulled her against his chest as the SUV accelerated, his arms forming a protective cage around her. He was trembling with barely controlled rage, his eyes blazing gold in the darkness. "Are you hurt?" His hands moved over her face, her arms, checking for injuries. "No. Owen saved me. There were rogues." "I know. I felt it." His voice broke. "I felt your terror through the bond that's forming between us. It nearly drove me mad. The bond." Olivia had felt it too. A golden thread connecting her heart to his that had pulled taut with panic when the attack began. "Where are we going?" "Seattle. To my home. It's the only place I can guarantee your safety." He pressed his forehead against hers. "I'm so sorry, Olivia. I never meant to put you in danger. The drive took 3 hours." Olivia dozed fitfully against Dominic's shoulder while he held her, one hand stroking her hair while the other gripped his phone, issuing clipped orders to people she couldn't see. By the time they arrived, dawn was breaking over the Pacific Northwest. The complex took Olivia's breath away even through her exhaustion. It sprawled across 200 acres of pristine forest, with a massive contemporary mansion as its centerpiece. Glass and steel and natural wood blended seamlessly, creating something that looked more like a high-tech corporate campus than a palace. "This is where you live?" Olivia breathed. "This is where I rule from." Dominic helped her from the SUV. "Welcome to the heart of the shifter world in North America." Inside was no less impressive. Modern furniture, soaring ceilings, and everywhere, people. Shifters, she realized, recognizing that same otherworldly quality she'd seen in Dominic and Owen. They all stopped to stare as Dominic led her through the main hall, his arm protectively around her waist. The whispers started immediately. "The human. Is that her? What is the king thinking?" They arrived at a massive kitchen where an elderly woman was overseeing breakfast preparations. She looked up, and her eyes widened in shock. "Olivia? May?" Olivia couldn't believe what she was seeing. "What are you doing here?" "I work here, honey. Have for 40 years. The diner was a careful disguise, a quiet life on the surface that kept her close to human society, while she continued a different job behind the scenes. May had long used the diner as cover, a way to stay near people without drawing political attention. May came around the counter, pulling Olivia into a hug. "When I said I had connections to this world, this is what I meant. I've been the king's personal consultant since before Dominic was born. Everything suddenly made sense. May's warnings, her knowledge, the way she'd looked at Dominic that night in the diner. She'd known exactly who he was. You could have told me, Olivia said, pulling back. Would you have believed me? May cupped her face gently. Some things we have to discover for ourselves, child. Now come, let's get you cleaned up and fed. You look like you've been through hell. While May fussed over her, Dominic disappeared to deal with the aftermath of the attack. Olivia found herself in a guest room that was larger than her entire apartment, showering away the night's terror in a bathroom that belonged in a magazine. When she emerged in borrowed clothes, she found May waiting with tea and answers. Derek Winters is behind this, the older woman explained. He wants Dominic to marry his daughter Victoria, uniting their families. But more than that, he wants control of the throne. With Victoria as queen, Derek would be the power behind it. But Dominic is the king. How could Derek? By making Dominic look weak, by proving he can't protect his own people, let alone a human he's claimed interest in. May's expression was grave. Derek has been building a faction of rebels for years. If Dominic announces his intention to choose you over Victoria, there will be war. The weight of it crashed over Olivia. People will die because of me. People will die because of Derek's ambition, May corrected firmly. Don't take that burden on yourself, honey. You're not responsible for the choices of others. A knock interrupted them. Dominic entered, his face carefully neutral. The council has requested an emergency meeting. They know you're here. Already? News travels fast in our world. He crossed to her, pulling her to her feet. I need to tell them about my decision. About you. Are you ready for this? Olivia's hands trembled, but she nodded. What do I need to do? Just stand beside me. Let them see that I choose you, and that you're strong enough to choose me back. The council chamber was a modern auditorium, with a long table where 12 shifters sat in positions of obvious power. All of them radiated authority, their amber eyes tracking Olivia's every movement as Dominic led her to the center of the room. Derek Winters sat at the head of the table, a silver-haired man with cold eyes and a calculating smile. Your Majesty, how good of you to finally join us. And with company, I see. Council members, Dominic's voice carried absolute command. I've called you here to announce my decision regarding the engagement to Lady Victoria Winters. Tension crackled through the room. Derek leaned forward. I'm sure you've come to your senses, Majesty. The arrangement between our families is hereby dissolved. Dominic's words dropped like stones into still water. I choose Olivia Bennet as my Luna, a human with more honor and strength than any shifter I've encountered. The room exploded. Shouting, protests, Derek slamming his fist on the table. Through it all, Olivia stood with her chin raised, refusing to show the terror coursing through her veins. An elderly woman at the far end of the table raised her hand for silence. Your Majesty, surely you understand the implications. A human queen has never been done. Our laws. I am the law. Dominic interrupted, his eyes blazing gold. And I'm telling you that Olivia is my choice. Anyone who wishes to challenge that can challenge me directly. The threat hung in the air. No one moved. Derek's face had turned purple with rage, but even he didn't dare issue a direct challenge to the Alpha King. There will be consequences, Derek said quietly, dangerously. The Pax will not accept this. You're asking for rebellion. Then let them rebel. I will not compromise on this. The meeting dissolved into heated arguments. Olivia caught fragments. Violation of tradition. She can't even shift. The bloodline must remain pure. An older woman with kind eyes approached as the others dispersed. I am Moira, she introduced herself. And I must say, child, you have more courage than I expected. To stand before this council without showing fear, that's impressive for anyone, shifter or human. I'm terrified, Olivia admitted. Yes, but you don't let it control you. Moira studied her. Perhaps the king is right about you. After the council meeting, Dominic took Olivia to his private study. The moment the door closed, he pulled her into his arms. I'm so sorry you had to endure that. It's what I signed up for. Olivia's voice was muffled against his chest. But Dominic, are you sure about this? Derek was right. People will rebel. There could be war. There will be war regardless. He tilted her chin up. Derek has been planning this for years. He wants the throne, and he'll use any excuse to take it. At least this way. I'm fighting for something worth having. Me? You. He kissed her softly. Olivia, in 2 days, there's a ceremony where I'm supposed to announce my engagement. Instead, I want to announce you as my chosen Luna, but I need to know you're certain. Once we do this, there's no going back. Olivia thought of her tiny apartment, her struggling life in Portland, the constant feeling of being invisible. Then she thought of Dominic's amber eyes in the alley, the way he'd looked at her like she mattered, the bond growing between them that felt more real than anything she'd ever known. I'm certain, she said. Terrified, but certain. Good. His smile was fierce. Because starting tomorrow, Owen is going to teach you how to defend yourself properly. If you're going to be my queen, you need to know how to fight. With a baseball bat? With silver daggers. His expression turned serious. The ceremony is in 2 days. Derek and Victoria won't let this happen without a fight. They'll come for you, Olivia. And when they do, I need you to be ready. That night, lying in the guest room, Olivia couldn't sleep. Somewhere in this massive complex, Dominic was making preparations for war. And she was the cause of it all. The human girl who'd given away her last meal and somehow stolen a king's heart. Tomorrow, she would start learning to fight. In 2 days, she would stand before the entire Shifter Nation and be claimed as queen. And sometime soon, people who wanted her dead would make their move. Olivia pressed her hand to her chest, feeling that golden bond pulsing steadily. Dominic was awake too, she realized. She could sense his emotions through their connection. Worry, determination, and underneath it all, a fierce protectiveness that made her feel safer than she ever had in her life. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Chapter 6. Blood and Silver. The ceremony hall was a marvel of modern architecture. Glass walls rose 3 stories high, revealing the forest beyond, while chandeliers crafted from antler and crystal cast dancing shadows across polished marble floors. 300 shifters filled the space, their combined presence creating a pressure in the air that made Olivia's lungs feel tight. She stood in a preparation room adjacent to the main hall, staring at her reflection. The dress they'd chosen was stunning but practical, silver silk that flowed when she moved, but wouldn't restrict her if she needed to run or fight. The silver dagger Owen had given her was strapped to her thigh beneath the fabric, cold metal against her skin. May fussed with Olivia's hair, pinning it up in an elegant twist. You're shaking, honey. I'm terrified. Olivia's voice came out barely above a whisper. There are 300 shifters out there, and most of them want me dead. Then you show them you're not afraid. May's weathered hands gripped Olivia's shoulders, meeting her eyes in the mirror. You've survived poverty, loss, and attacks by creatures that shouldn't exist. This is just politics in fancy dress. The door opened and Dominic entered, stealing Olivia's breath. He wore all black, the formal attire making him look every inch the king he was. But it was his eyes that held her. Those amber depths blazed with emotion as he took her in. You're beautiful, he said softly, crossing to her. And you're the bravest person I've ever known. I don't feel brave. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. He cupped her face gently. Are you ready? Before Olivia could answer, Owen burst through the door, his face grim. Your Majesty, we have a problem. Derek's faction is larger than we thought. I count at least 60 rogues positioned around the perimeter. Dominic's expression hardened. Inside the compound? They've been posing as staff for weeks. Security didn't catch them because Derek approved their backgrounds personally. Owen's jaw clenched. This is a coordinated attack. They're waiting for the ceremony to begin. Then we give them what they want. Dominic's voice dropped to that dangerous register Olivia had come to recognize. Let them think they're winning. We'll be ready. They moved into the hall, and every conversation died. 300 pairs of eyes tracked Olivia's progress as she walked beside Dominic toward the raised platform at the front. She could smell their judgment, their curiosity, their hostility. Among them, Victoria stood out like ice, her white dress a calculated insult to tradition. Derek Winters sat in the front row, his expression carefully neutral, but Olivia saw the hatred burning in his eyes. He knew what Dominic was about to do, and he'd come prepared to stop it. Dominic ascended the platform and raised his hand for silence. The command in the gesture was absolute. We gather here today to mark a new era for our people. For 5 centuries, we've chosen our leaders based on bloodline and political alliance. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. But I was taught that true leadership requires more than power. It requires compassion, wisdom, and the strength to do what's right, rather than what's expected. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Derek shifted forward in his seat. Therefore, I reject the arranged engagement with Lady Victoria Winters. Dominic's words rang clear and unwavering. Instead, I choose Olivia Bennet as my Luna, a human whose heart is stronger than any wolf's. The hall erupted. Shouting, protests, Derek slamming his fist on the armrest. But underneath the chaos, Olivia heard something else. The subtle sound of doors being blocked, of footsteps moving into position. It was starting. Derek rose, his face purple with rage. This is treason against our kind. I demand a formal challenge to your authority. Is that what you want, Derek? Dominic's voice carried power that made the air itself vibrate. Or do you want what you've been planning all along? The question hung in the sudden silence. Derek's expression flickered, just for a moment, before smoothing into false confusion. I don't know what you're suggesting. Then let me be clear. Dominic descended the steps, every movement controlled and predatory. You've been building a rebel faction for years. He'd bought loyalty with promises, land, immunity, and coin, preying on the desperate by offering rogues territory and chaos in exchange for blades and obedience, positioning rogues as staff, planning to use this ceremony as cover for a coup. Glass shattered. Windows exploded inward as 60 wolves burst through, their snarls filling the hall with violence. The rogues were massive, fur-matted and eyes wild with bloodlust. They'd been starved, Olivia realized with horror. Starved to make them more vicious. Chaos erupted. Shifters loyal to Dominic transformed instantly, meeting the attackers head-on. The hall became a battlefield, bodies colliding in a fury of teeth and claws. Blood sprayed across marble as screams of pain and rage echoed off glass walls. Victoria transformed into her white wolf and lunged through the fighting toward the platform, toward Olivia. Owen intercepted her, his rust-colored wolf slamming into her side. They rolled across the floor, snapping and clawing. But 2 more rogues broke through, their eyes fixed on Olivia with single-minded purpose. Kill the human. Remove the threat to Derek's plans. Olivia's hand closed around the silver dagger. The first rogue leaped, jaws wide. She dropped and rolled, the movement automatic from hours of Owen's training. The blade slashed upward, catching the rogue's belly. Silver burned shifter flesh instantly. The creature howled and stumbled back. The second was smarter. It circled, waiting for an opening. Olivia kept moving, never letting it get behind her. Her heart hammered, but her hands were steady. Fear and adrenaline merged into crystal clarity. The rogue feinted left, then lunged right. Olivia twisted, bringing the dagger up in a defensive arc. It caught the rogue across the muzzle, not deep but painful. Silver worked like acid on shifter flesh, smoking where it touched. Then Victoria was there, having broken free from Owen. The white wolf was magnificent and terrifying, larger than the rogues and moving with trained precision. She backed Olivia into a corner, eyes gleaming with triumph. You think you can take my place? Victoria's voice emerged distorted from her wolf form, a trick few shifters mastered. You're nothing. Weak human trash. She lunged for Olivia's throat. Olivia ducked and drove the dagger upward with everything she had. Silver bit deep into Victoria's shoulder, and the white wolf screamed, stumbling back. Blood matted her pristine fur, smoking where the silver remained embedded. Victoria shifted back to human, naked and furious, clutching her wounded shoulder. You'll pay for that. She advanced, but then Dominic was there. Not in wolf form, but something more terrifying. His eyes blazed pure gold, his body radiating power that made even other alphas step back. This was alpha dominance at its peak, the ability to command through sheer force of will. "Touch her again and I'll tear you apart." Dominic's voice carried harmonics that weren't quite human. It was the voice of the king, of power absolute. Victoria was already bleeding from the shoulder wound Olivia had inflicted. The silver had weakened her and, combined with Victoria's arrogance, created the opening the human needed. Victoria froze, her body responding to the command against her will. Every shifter in the hall felt it, that overwhelming pressure demanding submission. On the far side of the hall, Derek had been trying to slip away. Owen's loyal guards surrounded him now, weapons drawn. The coup was failing. The rogues either dead or surrendering as loyal pack members overwhelmed them through superior numbers and training. A massive rogue, larger than the rest, burst through the remaining fighters. This was their leader, the alpha Derek had hired to do his dirty work. Scarred and savage, he headed straight for Dominic. They collided in the center of the hall, both in full wolf form, black fur and brown, power against brutality. The fighting around them stopped as everyone watched the alpha duel. This was ancient law. Winner took all. The rogue alpha was experienced and vicious. He went for Dominic's throat repeatedly, using his weight to try to pin the younger wolf. But Dominic was faster, his movements fluid and precise. Each strike calculated, each dodge perfectly timed. When Dominic's jaws finally closed around the rogue's throat, there was no hesitation. One powerful shake, the sound of vertebrae cracking, and it was over. The rogue alpha fell, lifeless before it hit the floor. Dominic shifted back to human, standing over the body. Blood marked his face, his clothes torn, but his eyes were clear and commanding as they swept the hall. "Anyone else want to challenge my authority?" Silence. Even the most hostile shifters looked away, unable to meet his gaze. Dominic had proven his strength absolutely. He'd defended his territory, his choice of mate, and his right to rule. Derek Winters was on his knees now, Owen's sword pressed to his neck. The older man's face was ashen, all his plans crumbling around him. "Derek Winters," Dominic's voice carried judgment. "You are guilty of treason, conspiracy, and attempted murder of your king. The penalty is death." "You can't!" Derek's composure finally broke. "I'm council leader. You need me. I need loyal advisors, not traitors." Dominic nodded to Owen. "Execute him." The sword fell. It was over in seconds, just as swift and brutal as shifter law demanded. Victoria screamed, launching herself at Dominic with claws extended. Olivia moved without thinking, tackling the other woman from the side. They rolled across blood-slicked marble, Victoria's superior strength overwhelming Olivia's human abilities. But Olivia had the dagger. She brought it up again, this time pressing it against Victoria's throat. "Move and I push. Silver through your jugular." Even shifter healing can't fix that fast enough. Victoria froze, feeling the burn of silver against her skin. Her ice-blue eyes met Olivia's, and for the first time, she saw genuine fear there. "Yield," Olivia commanded, her voice steady despite her shaking hands. "Yield or die." "I yield." The words came out choked, humiliating for an alpha to submit to a human. Dominic pulled Olivia to her feet, his arm wrapping protectively around her waist. Victoria was dragged away by guards, her fate now in Dominic's hands. "Victoria Winters," Dominic announced to the assembled shifters. "You are banished from all territories in North America, effective immediately. The mark of exile will be placed upon you, and if you ever return, the penalty is death." Victoria's face crumbled. Banishment was worse than death for a shifter. To be cast out from pack, from territory, from everything that defined them. She'd be marked with magical ink that burned constantly, a warning to any shifter who encountered her. The hall slowly quieted as the reality of what had happened sank in. Derek was dead. His daughter banished. The coup crushed. And standing on the platform, covered in blood but unbowed, was a human woman who'd fought like a warrior. The elderly woman Olivia recognized as Moira approached the platform slowly. She bowed, deep and respectful. "Your Majesty, forgive us for doubting. This human has proven her worth in blood and courage. One by one, the other council members approached and bowed. Some looked genuinely impressed. Others simply accepted reality, but all of them acknowledged what Olivia had done. She'd fought for her place. She'd defended herself and her king. She'd shown strength that had nothing to do with shifting and everything to do with heart. Dominic turned to face the assembly, pulling Olivia close to his side. "Do any others challenge my choice of Luna?" Not a single voice spoke. The hall was silent, except for the groans of the wounded being attended to by healers. Then witness. Dominic tilted Olivia's chin up, his eyes burning into hers. "I claim Olivia Bennett as mine. My mate, my Luna, my queen." His mouth descended on hers in a kiss that sealed their bond before 300 shifters. And as his teeth grazed her neck in the symbolic beginning of a claiming bite, Olivia felt something shift deep inside her. That golden thread connecting them blazed brighter, stronger, becoming something unbreakable. When they finally parted, Dominic's eyes held wonder. "I can feel you. Everything you feel, I feel now." "I know." Olivia's voice was soft, meant only for him. "I feel you too. Your strength, your determination, your love. Always," he promised. "For however long we both live, the ceremony should have ended there. But the evidence of battle remained. Bodies of fallen rogues, blood-staining marble, broken glass glittering across the floor. This wasn't the elegant announcement Dominic had planned. It was victory earned in violence. But looking out at the assembly, seeing the respect in eyes that had held only contempt before, Olivia understood. Sometimes you had to fight for your place. Sometimes strength came not from what you were born with, but from what you refused to surrender. She'd fought for Dominic, for her future, for the right to love someone impossible, and she'd won. Chapter 7. Awakening. Olivia woke 3 days later in a private medical suite, every muscle in her body screaming protest. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing a room that looked more like a luxury hotel than a hospital. The steady beep of monitors provided rhythmic accompaniment to her confusion. Dominic was there, slumped in a chair beside her bed. He looked haggard, dark circles shadowing his amber eyes, stubble covering his jaw. His hand gripped hers even in sleep, as if afraid she'd disappear. "Dominic," she whispered, her throat raw. His eyes snapped open, and the relief that flooded his face made her chest tight. "You're awake. Thank God you're awake." He pressed kisses to her knuckles, her palm, her wrist. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. The healers said your body went into shock from the trauma. Memories crashed over her. The ceremony, the attack. Victoria's white wolf lunging for her throat. The silver dagger finding flesh. So much blood. Did we win?" The question came out barely above a whisper. "We won." Dominic's voice was fierce. "Derek is dead. Victoria is banished. The coup is crushed." He cupped her face gently. "And you, my brave little human, fought like a warrior. The entire council witnessed it. I was terrified. You were magnificent." He kissed her softly. "Every shifter in that hall saw your strength. They can never claim you're too weak for this world now." A knock interrupted them. Dr. Ramsey entered, an elderly shifter whose gray hair and kind eyes reminded Olivia of her grandfather. He'd been dead for 15 years, but the memory was still comforting. "Miss Bennett, wonderful to see you conscious." The healer approached with professional efficiency, checking monitors and making notes. "How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a truck." Olivia shifted, wincing as her back protested. "Everything hurts." "That's to be expected. You sustained significant injuries, deep lacerations on your back and arms, bruised ribs, minor concussion." Dr. Ramsey paused, his expression shifting to puzzlement. "Though I must say, you're healing remarkably fast for a human." "Fast?" Dominic straightened. "What do you mean? Injuries like hers should take weeks to heal." "But look." Dr. Ramsey lifted Olivia's arm, revealing what should have been deep claw marks. Instead, pink scars lined her skin, already fading. "This is 3 days old. In humans, these wounds would still be open and infected. In you, they're nearly healed. Olivia stared at her arm, confusion swirling. I don't understand. How is that possible? I'd like to run some tests, with your permission. Dr. Ramsey's tone was careful. Blood work, genetic screening. Something about your healing is unusual. 2 hours later, Olivia sat in Dominic's study while they waited for results. Owen had joined them, looking equally tired but satisfied. The complex was quieter now. The aftermath of battle settled into tense peace. The council wants to reconvene tomorrow, Owen reported. They're demanding answers about Victoria's banishment and Derek's execution. Let them demand. Dominic's arm tightened around Olivia's waist. I followed ancient law. Trial by combat, witnesses present. Everything was legal. They're also asking about succession. Derek's position needs filling. Moira can take it. She's earned the trust. Dominic paused as Dr. Ramsey knocked and entered, carrying a folder that seemed to weigh more than it should. Your Majesty, Miss Bennet. The healer's expression was grave. I have the test results. I think you'll want to sit down for this. Olivia was already sitting, but she gripped Dominic's hand tighter. What did you find? Miss Bennet, you have shifter DNA. Dr. Ramsey opened the folder, revealing charts and graphs Olivia couldn't interpret. It's extremely diluted, perhaps 5 or 6 generations removed, but it's present. Approximately 8% of your genetic makeup carries shifter markers. The room seemed to tilt. That's impossible. My parents were human. Completely human. One of your ancestors wasn't. Likely a great-great-grandparent, possibly further back. Dr. Ramsey pointed to a specific chart. The gene has been dormant, passing silently through your family line. But it's there. This is why you've always felt different. Dominic said softly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Why you sensed there was more to the world. Your shifter blood recognized what your human mind couldn't see. Can I shift? Hope and fear warred in Olivia's chest. No. Dr. Ramsey shook his head. The gene is too diluted for full transformation. You'll never take wolf form. However, you will have certain advantages. He ticked them off on his fingers. Accelerated healing, as we've seen. Moderately increased strength and stamina. Heightened senses, though not to shifter levels. And significantly extended lifespan. How extended? Barring accidents or illness, you could live 150 to 200 years. Olivia's breath caught. That's impossible. It's genetics. Dr. Ramsey's smile was gentle. There's one more thing. The dormant gene means you can bear children with shifters without complications. Your body will naturally accommodate the pregnancy. Dominic's hand found Olivia's belly, his touch reverent. We could have a family. The children would be hybrids, Dr. Ramsey cautioned. There's no guarantee they'd be able to shift, but they'd carry the gene more strongly than you do. Perhaps 20 to 30% shifter genetics. After the healer left, Olivia sat in stunned silence. Everything she'd believed about herself, about her family, had shifted beneath her feet. She wasn't fully human. Never had been. No wonder she'd felt so out of place her entire life. Talk to me, Dominic urged, kneeling before her. Tell me what you're feeling. I don't know. Relieved? Confused? Olivia met his amber eyes. My whole life, I've felt like I didn't quite fit anywhere, like there was something wrong with me. But there wasn't. I was just caught between two worlds without realizing it, and now you know which world you belong to. His hands framed her face. You belong with me. With us. You always have. That night, May visited, bringing tea and the knowing expression Olivia had come to expect. Your grandmother had the sight, the older woman revealed. Could sense things before they happened. Healed plants that should have died. I always wondered if there was more to your family than met the eye. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because your parents didn't know. The gene was so diluted, so dormant, that it never manifested in them. May squeezed her hand. But it manifested in you, honey. Just enough to make you special. A week after the battle, the formal union ceremony took place. This time there was no violence, no chaos. Just Olivia in a gown of silver and white, walking toward Dominic under the full moon, while 300 shifters bore witness. Moira, newly appointed to the council, officiated. We gather under the moon's blessing to unite our king with his chosen Luna. Let any who still oppose this union speak now. Silence. Not even the wind dared interrupt. Dominic took Olivia's hands, his eyes glowing gold in the moonlight. I, Dominic Gray, Alpha King of all North American territories, claim Olivia Bennett as my Luna, my mate, my queen. I offer her my protection, my heart, and my life, from this day until my last. Olivia's voice was steady, clear. I, Olivia Bennett, accept Dominic Gray as my mate, my king, my partner. I offer him my loyalty, my heart, and my life, from this day until my last. The claim bite came next, and this time Olivia understood what it meant. Dominic's teeth found the junction of her neck and shoulder, breaking skin but not tearing. The pain was sharp but brief, replaced by spreading warmth that felt like sunlight in her veins. The mate bond snapped fully into place. Suddenly, Olivia could feel everything Dominic felt. His fierce love, his overwhelming relief, his unshakable certainty that she was exactly where she belonged. And through that golden thread connecting them, he felt her emotions too. Her joy, her love, her absolute commitment to this impossible life they'd chosen. When they parted, both bore the mark. On Olivia's neck, a silver scar in the shape of a crescent moon, forever identifying her as the Luna Queen. On Dominic's neck, a matching mark, proving his bond to her was complete and unbreakable. The assembled shifters erupted in howls of approval, the sound echoing through the forest and beyond. From the surrounding woods, pack members who hadn't been invited to the ceremony added their voices, creating a symphony of acceptance that made Olivia's eyes sting with tears. "They're welcoming you," Dominic whispered against her ear. "Every wolf for 100 miles is howling their approval of their new queen." That night, in Dominic's private chambers, they consummated the bond fully. It was nothing like Olivia had imagined. The mate bond amplified everything, making each touch, each kiss, each whispered word of love resonate through both of them. When Dominic finally claimed her completely, Olivia felt not just her own pleasure but his, the sensations doubling and redoubling, until she couldn't tell where she ended, and he began. Afterward, lying tangled together with moonlight painting silver patterns across their skin, Dominic traced the claim mark on her neck. "I love you," he said simply. "I've loved you since you gave me your last meal without hesitation." "I love you too." Olivia pressed her hand over his heart, feeling it beat in time with hers. "Even when you were covered in dirt and I thought you were just a homeless man, something in me recognized you. Your dormant shifter blood knew what your human mind couldn't see." He kissed her forehead. "You were always meant to be mine, Olivia. The universe has been pushing us together since that night in the alley. And I'm glad I listened." She smiled against his chest. Even if it meant fighting off homicidal shifters and learning to use a silver dagger. His laugh rumbled through both of them via their bond, warm and comforting. "That's my Luna, brave even when she's terrified. Only because I have you." Olivia looked up at him, seeing her future in his amber eyes. "We're going to be okay, aren't we? Despite everything?" "More than okay." Dominic's voice carried absolute certainty. "We're going to be legendary." Chapter 8. Queens of Tomorrow. 3 months passed in a blur of adjustment and transformation. Olivia stood on the private balcony of the royal chambers, watching dawn paint the Seattle skyline in shades of gold and rose. Her hand rested unconsciously on her still flat stomach. A secret she and Dominic had been holding close for 2 weeks. "You're up early." Dominic's arms wrapped around her from behind, his warmth seeping through her silk robe. "Couldn't sleep? Too much on my mind." Olivia leaned back against his chest, feeling his heartbeat through their bond. "The gathering is in 3 hours. Every regional alpha in North America will be watching me, and they'll see exactly what I see. A queen who's earned her place." He pressed a kiss to her claim mark, and pleasure rippled through their connection. "You've changed so much in 3 months, love." It was true. The timid waitress who'd given away her last meal felt like a different person. Olivia had spent the past months learning pack politics, studying shifter law, and working with Owen to establish programs that would bridge the gap between human and shifter communities. Her Second Chances initiative had already helped 30 people rebuild their lives. Humans who'd fallen through society's cracks and rogues who'd been rejected by traditional packs now had options beyond starvation or violence. May had been instrumental in its success, using her decades of connections to secure funding and support. "I'm still terrified of public speaking," Olivia admitted. "Good. That means you care about doing it right." Dominic turned her to face him, amber eyes warm with pride. "Ready to tell them the other news?" Olivia's hand moved to her stomach again. "Are you sure it's time? The pack should know their future heir is coming." Dr. Ramsey had confirmed the pregnancy 2 weeks ago. The baby was healthy, growing normally despite being a hybrid. There was no way to predict whether the child would be able to shift, but Olivia found she didn't care. She'd love them regardless. The gathering that afternoon was held in the main hall, now fully restored from the battle 3 months prior. 50 regional alphas had traveled to Seattle, along with their betas and key pack members. It was the largest assembly since Olivia's violent claim ceremony. She entered beside Dominic, dressed in a gown of deep emerald that made her look every inch a queen. The claim mark on her neck was visible, proclaiming her status to all who saw. Conversations quieted as they took their places on the raised platform. Moira, now firmly established as council leader, stood to address the assembly. "We gather today to formally recognize the changes to shifter law enacted by King Dominic and Queen Olivia over the past 3 months. The first law had been the most controversial. Human shifter unions were now legally recognized across all territories. 3 couples had already completed formal bonding ceremonies, with 2 more planned before winter. It wasn't widespread acceptance, but it was a beginning. The second law addressed rogue rehabilitation. Shifters who'd committed no violent crimes could now petition for asylum and integration into established packs. It was a radical departure from the traditional exile system, but it was working. 12 rogues had successfully integrated so far. "These changes represent a new era," Moira continued. "One where compassion guides strength, rather than strength alone ruling." When it was Olivia's turn to speak, she rose with carefully hidden nerves. 3 months of practice kept her voice steady as she addressed the assembly. "When I first learned about your world, I was terrified. I didn't understand the bonds between you, the laws that governed you, or the traditions you held sacred." She paused, meeting eyes throughout the room. "But I've learned that beneath the supernatural elements, you're not so different from humans. You value family, loyalty, and community. You want your children to grow up safe, and your elders to be respected." Several alphas nodded, their initial skepticism softening. "I can't change my species. I'll never shift into a wolf. But I can use my unique position to build bridges between worlds that have been separated for too long." Olivia's hand moved to her stomach, a gesture that didn't go unnoticed. "Which is why I'm honored to announce that in 6 months, the kingdom will welcome its first heir. A child who carries both human and shifter blood, just as this new era carries both tradition and change." The hall erupted in surprised murmurs. Then, from the back, a lone howl rose. It was taken up by others, growing into a chorus of approval that made the chandeliers tremble. The shifter way of celebrating joyous news. Dominic's hand found hers, squeezing tight. Through their bond, she felt his overwhelming pride and love. After the formal gathering, Olivia found herself in the gardens with May, who'd brought tea and knowing smiles. "A baby. Your parents would have been so proud, honey. I wish they could have known." Olivia sipped the tea, its warmth spreading through her chest. "About all of this. The shifters, Dominic, who I've become, they knew you were special. Your mother used to say you had stars in your eyes, always looking for something more." May patted her hand. "They'd love that you found it." Owen approached with his usual efficient stride, but there was something different in his expression. Softer. "Your Majesty, there's someone here to see you. A young woman from Portland. She says she worked with you at Ray's Diner." Natalie stood in the receiving room, eyes wide as she took in the grandeur around her. When she saw Olivia, she burst into tears. "I'm so sorry," Natalie sobbed. "I didn't know what to believe when you disappeared. People said you'd run off with some rich guy. But then I saw the news about the new queen, and it was you. And Olivia pulled her into a hug. Breathe. It's okay. You're not the first person to be confused by my life lately. They spent an hour catching up, Olivia carefully explaining what she could about the shifter world. Natalie absorbed it all with the adaptability of youth, her main concern being whether Olivia was happy. Happier than I ever thought possible, Olivia admitted. Terrified most of the time, but happy. Before Natalie left, Olivia made her an offer. We're starting an outreach program for humans who know about shifters. People who can work as liaisons, building understanding. Would you be interested? Natalie's face lit up. Really? You'd trust me with that? You were kind to me when I had nothing. I don't forget that. That evening, Dominic found Olivia in what had become her favorite place, a small greenhouse attached to their private quarters. She'd been growing flowers there, recreating her mother's garden from memory. Roses, lilies, and lavender filled the space with color and fragrance. You've been busy today, he observed, settling beside her on the bench. New laws announced, baby revealed, and Natalie recruited. Is there anything you can't do? Sleep through the night, Olivia laughed. The baby apparently has very strong opinions about my bladder. Dominic's hand joined hers on her stomach. Have you thought about names? If it's a girl, I'd like to name her after my mother. Margaret Rose. Olivia leaned into his warmth. For a boy, I was thinking Samuel, after my father. Human names for a hybrid child. Dominic's smile was soft. I like that. Honoring both sides of their heritage. They sat in comfortable silence, surrounded by flowers and moonlight. Through the bond, their emotions mingled, becoming something greater than the sum of its parts. Love, contentment, hope for the future. Do you ever regret it? Olivia asked softly. Choosing me over someone who could have given you a full-blooded heir? Someone who fit your world better? Every day, Dominic said, making her heart skip. Then he grinned at her stricken expression. I regret that I didn't find you sooner, that we wasted time I could have spent loving you. You're terrible. Olivia smacked his shoulder, but she was smiling. I'm yours. He kissed her gently. Completely, irrevocably yours. And our child will be perfect, whether they shift or not, because they're part of you, and everything about you is perfect. 6 months later, on a spring morning when cherry blossoms painted the grounds in pink snow, Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby girl. Margaret Rose Gray had her father's amber eyes and her mother's determined chin. She was perfect. The baby didn't shift in her first year. Or her second. Dr. Ramsey explained that hybrid genetics were unpredictable. She might never manifest shifter abilities beyond the accelerated healing and extended lifespan Olivia possessed. But when Margaret turned 3, playing in the gardens with her mother, she suddenly dissolved into a small black wolf pup with amber eyes. Olivia's shocked gasp brought Dominic running from his study. Their daughter shifted back, giggling at their stunned faces. Puppy! Mama, I'm a puppy! Dominic swept both of them into his arms, his face wet with tears he didn't try to hide. Through their bond, Olivia felt his overwhelming joy. Their daughter was a shifter. The bloodline would continue. But more than that, Margaret represented something unprecedented. She was the first documented healthy hybrid in shifter history, proof that the walls between human and shifter could be crossed successfully. Within a year, human-shifter unions had tripled. The children born from these relationships, while not all shifters themselves, carried enough genetics to pass the trait forward. A new generation was rising, one that would blur the lines between worlds until they became meaningless. On their daughter's 5th birthday, Olivia stood once more on the balcony where this all began. Below, the gardens were filled with children playing, half of them human, the other half shifter, none of them caring about the distinction. Margaret led a game of tag, her laugh bright and joyful as she shifted between forms to catch the other kids. She's going to be trouble, Dominic observed, wrapping his arms around Olivia's waist. She's going to change the world. Olivia leaned back into his embrace. Just like her parents. Do you remember when you were a struggling waitress giving away her last meal? Every day. It feels like a dream sometimes. The hungry girl in the alley meeting the mysterious stranger. Not so mysterious anymore. Dominic's lips found her claim mark, still silver and perfect after all these years. though you still surprise me regularly." Olivia turned in his arms, seeing the future in his amber eyes. A future they'd built together against impossible odds. A future where kindness had triumphed over tradition, where love had bridged worlds, and where a simple act of generosity had changed everything. "I'd do it again," she said softly. "Give you my last meal. Follow you into the unknown. Fight for this life we've built. I'd do it all again without hesitation. And I'd test the heart of every person in North America until I found you." Dominic kissed her thoroughly, pouring decades of love through their unbreakable bond. "My queen, my mate, my impossible perfect match." In the garden below, Margaret howled with childish joy, and the other children joined in, their voices rising into the spring sky. The sound was picked up by pack members throughout the territory, spreading outward in waves of celebration. The world had changed, not overnight, and not without struggle. But it had changed, because a 23-year-old waitress had seen a stranger in need and offered everything she had without expecting anything in return. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness reshape the world. Sometimes strangers become kings, and lonely humans become queens. Sometimes the impossible becomes real, one choice at a time.